So Syria has collapsed. Assad and his family have fled to Moscow under asylum, and this is interesting of the timing that this occurred. This is when Joe Biden is on his way out. So the rebels, well, any of these rebel groups, including Assad, none of these are groups that respect individual rights. Assad at least had a secular element to his rule and didn't persecute groups for the sake of persecuting because he didn't agree with them necessarily. So I'm not defending Assad, but of all the different groups vying for power in Syria, Assad was the lesser of the evils. Now you have these rebels, these Islamic rebels that want to make something like a theocracy. You're going to have something similar to like Libya or Egypt, which is a more stable example, but even that is something of a theocracy there. It's a Muslim Brotherhood that took over and other groups that have taken over there. But in Syria, you have obviously there's different groups. You've got the Kurds, you've got the Alawites, you have Shia militias from Iran, you have Sunni militias, which are ISIS / Al Qaeda and other groups that are there. You have the Druze group. You have Christians that are there, particularly in western part of Syria. And the ones that are vying for power, you had Assad. That was the government. That's the person who was in charge. He was a Ba'athist, I think, or an ideology that is similar to Ba'athist, like Saddam Hussein. And he was an Alawite. They're Sunni Muslims, but they allied themselves with the Shia Muslims because there was an ideological split between the Alawite Sunnis and the Arab Sunnis, which I've actually read about that, and I've seen YouTube videos about that, but I forgot the details of exactly why that is. But Syria is a country that, given it's the Middle East, and those borders were not drawn, with regard to, ethnicities or linguistic considerations or even religious considerations. They were drawn by the French and the British after the Ottoman Empire ceded that territory, and you had it's just such a mess there, and nationalities don't go back more than 100 years in that area. I mean, the Ottoman Empire collapsed, after World War I. But, what's probably going to end up happening, and I strongly urge, I don't have a big audience, and I doubt that I have any followers from Syria. But if you're in Syria, I would get out of that country right now. Right now. Don't waste any time. Get out any way you can. If you're not a member of one of these rebel groups, if you're a Christian, if you're a Kurd, this is a civil war that's going to go on for a while because you have different groups that control different parts of the country. You have the Druze in the south. You got probably some Hezbollah operations on the border, I would imagine. Israel's been doing strikes. The United States has been doing strikes. Russia's been doing strikes. The Russians are going to probably end up evacuating out of their port in Tartus. I would get out of that country quick. The Christians are going to get persecuted. The Alawites are going to get persecuted. This is a Sunni. This is the dominant force is a Sunni militia. I wouldn't be surprised if Shia were persecuted to some extent. It's not going to be a good place to go. It's going to be anarchy. It's going to be extraordinarily disorderly. It's going to be a complete mess, and there's nothing that the United States can really do about it. Any of these groups, like I said before, don't have a concept of individual rights. They don't care about the rights of a single individual. It's all about, gaining control and maintaining power. And in the case in the Middle East, because you don't have, a tradition of reason and rationality, you can't get people to comply because There's nothing to get them to comply unless they are just afraid, unless it's just based on fear. And so that's what these regimes tend to do. You look at Saddam Hussein, for example, which is brutal, but that's what he did to maintain order in a country like that. The best solution, what I would like to have seen happen, is a transition from an Assad type of government that would, over time, economically liberalize. In other words, you make it a free market. You allow for no taxation. You allow for people to trade and associate freely, and then over time, you have the United States, which I'm hoping would become a more rational, reason-based country. Our culture to be that way would have an influence on other countries like Syria, and that they would become less religious over time. They would be something like a renaissance in Syria from the medieval mentality that a lot of those people in the Middle East have today. Syria is taking a step backwards, and it's not going to be a good place to go. It's not a place that I'm going to go anytime soon. It's not a place that I would stay in. I would strongly recommend that anybody who is there is to get out of that country as soon as you can. It's going to be, a prolonged civil war. Well, I should say prolonged. It's going to be a civil war that's going to last for at least some months, and it could last longer than that. But I don't know. It doesn't look good right now. And it's going to be chaotic. It's going to probably look something like Libya if you take into consideration, or maybe even worse than Libya if you take into consideration the other powers in the region, Israel, Turkey, Iran, and you take into consideration that I think there's more different ethnic groups in Syria than there is in Libya. So we're talking about human trafficking. We're talking about genocide. We're talking about mass migration out of Syria. You're going to have millions of migrants that are moving. Of course, they're going to try to move into Europe, which is, I don't support that either. Turkey doesn't want them. Where are they going to go, right? So Israel's not going to take them. Lebanon, I don't think is going to take them. I mean, they go down to Jordan. Jordan is a resource poor country, and you go to Iraq to the east, but that's probably the best option, but that's just going to cause problems there too. So individually, I'd get out of that country. And right now, I think almost anywhere is better than Syria.